before, if I've met you or we've talked, you have a sense of my background. Anybody? I imagine this crowd is actually a pretty new crowd. So, all right. I've been I moved to Austin about four and a half years ago, summer of 2004. And I've been involved with independent film since the late 70s, went to art school, got involved with distribution immediately, experimental films, was in New York, was involved with a really key exhibitor of movie theater that premiered films that didn't have distribution for the most part, launched them. A lot of other movie theaters around the country and internationally actually would look to that theater for their programming. I was there for about 5 years. And you hear me okay? Am I speaking right? Okay. And then I met my husband there, who was like a theater manager, and we became investors in She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee's first film. And we became producers rep, which was a term that wasn't at the time, but it was kind of like you had somebody who made their own film their own way, and they had figured out how to make it, and then they didn't know how to get it into the world. And we had been working in exhibition and distribution post-college, and we didn't really know what we were doing, but it was like we knew everybody who was involved. So we got involved with Spike, and we helped launch that film, and I quit my job, and it changed our life. And the next about 10 years, we were involved with 24 American independent films. One you would have heard of would be Roger and Me and Clerks and Slacker. And that was our relationship with Austin. We got involved with Richard Linklater in 1990, 89, 90. So then John wrote a book called Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes, which has a lot of history of that time. We started a television show that was on the independent film channel called Split Screen, where we put a lot of filmmakers to work. We had been an entry point for filmmakers for that whole decade that we represented films. We were the only people that sort of you could send your film to as an unknown, and we would watch the whole thing and we would give you feedback. At the time, there were much fewer festivals, and festivals wouldn't necessarily look at that much, and we were just very open about it. We also had a workshop for 5 years for about 75 hand-picked filmmakers every summer, kind of meet one another. And so the television show ran for 66 episodes, 4 years. It was on Bravo and IFC. It was really fun. It was 30 minutes, sort of 3 or 4 stories in the half an hour. And then we moved to Fiji for a year, which was sort of an outgrowth of something on the television show. And we lived there from 2002 and 2003. We ran a movie theater that had been there for 50 years. That was in danger of closing. And we made it a free movie theater, and it was a pretty interesting adventure with our teenage kids. We lived with almost no electricity, pretty bare bones. And there's a documentary about it that exists that Steve James directed, who's the guy who made Hoop Dreams. It's not the best film in the world. It's called Real Paradise, but you can rent it or buy it if you want. And then we moved here, and my husband teaches at UT. He teaches producing at UT, and I got very involved with the Austin Film Society. I was Craig. I was one of the Austin reps for the Texas MPA its first year, but I'm vice president of the board of the Austin Film Society, and got really love everything they do, and got very involved with the local film scene and got to know everybody. So last year when Matt Dentler, who had been running South by Southwest for the last 5 years, when he decided to move to New York, I was recruited to fill his spot. I had been very close to him. I talked to him a lot. I was his confidant, so I knew a lot of what he went through. And it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I'm in kind of work serious mode here. We're just solving. I just had one of my worst crises about half an hour ago so far. We solved it. Well, something was leaked. It was just, we announced the program like several weeks ago, and then you work on the schedule, and now we're putting the program guide, and I almost didn't get here in time because I was working on, proofing details for the panels and the catalog, the film program book pages, but somebody leaked, we have like 3 new things that we're going to be announcing in the next couple of days that have been added to the program since we announced the program. And one of them was leaked to Chris Garcia's Statesman blog. And had the information was incorrect and it was premature, so we kind of had to just put that little fire out. But anyway, so how many of you have been to South by Southwest? Well, that's great. And how do you go? Who buys a film badge? Who volunteers? Who goes to music? Okay, and who goes to interactive? I somehow don't feel like the first question hands have been accounted for. Who buys individual tickets? Okay, well that helps. And who buys film passes? Which are on sale now, and not only are they on sale at the Waterloo, they're on sale at all the Alamos. It's an unbelievable deal. If for people who don't know, badges get you on entry to the conference and parties, which are amazing, and all the movies over the 9 days. A film pass just gets you into the movies, but it's a lot of movies over 9 days. And one of the things that I don't know if everybody realizes, the first weekend's kind of crazy and nutty, and a lot of people come in from out of town. But when music starts and the town gets really crazy, it's actually easier to get into the movies. So I recommend, if you love movies, really don't forget to go during music. And this year, we've consolidated a little bit. We are not using the Dolby, and I think they stopped using the Arbor a couple of years ago. We're kind of consolidated Paramount, Austin Convention Center, Hideout, Ritz 1 and 2, and we've got 3 screens at the Alamo South Lamar. Is that a question, or are you just acknowledging? Okay. So I don't know if you more, in terms of the program's been out a little bit. I mean, now that it's available online, there are trailers online. I'm kind of interested, if you have questions, I could rattle on, but I'm more curious in terms of what you might be interested more specifically in hearing about. So if anybody has any questions at this point, I'll take a break, but if not, I'll guess. Yeah.
So where do you see South by Southwest fitting into the yearly festival schedule in a way that we might not have seen before with you taking over your role?
Well, you care about it specifically with me as opposed to where it's always fit in. I mean, you're less. I think my goal wasn't to change anything. I really love the festival, and I think the way it evolved under Matt's leadership was great. It always has a good conference. And then, it was known for its documentaries, and then kind of the whole micro-budget discovery film thing really was exciting. And then the last couple of years, the studios came in, the kind of smart, subversive studio stuff came in. And to me, that's a perfect range. I really like that. I love all the music films. So my goal was just to sort of continue the work that Matt did. But what I didn't take into consideration was the fact that I've actually been involved with film for 30 years in a pretty generous, interesting way. I kind of forget that because it's my life, it's not, and so that I'm able to reach people that it's a little, I don't know, it's a little bit easier. So the lineup this year is just full of people that I didn't know would be happy to come here. And I think as just a coincidence in a way, I really love the integrated nature of the festival. And right now, the interactive conference has just been booming. Like the last several years, it's like doubling or a third larger than it was the year before. I mean, it's really kind of experiencing extraordinary growth. And I really embrace that, as you have to, as a film. The traditional film models are changing anyway. We're kind of ahead. We're ahead of the conversation in terms of what the new models are going to be. So we work together closely, and we're just trying to pay attention to that. And we just love the idea internally that South by, Sundance is. It was the place for the independent film community internationally to get together once a year, and you were looking for big deals, and you were looking. There was a high tension and pressure for like something really amazing to happen. And South by has been able to enjoy this sense of ease and sort of antidote, really, of sort of like it's here, it's easier, it's not elitist, you can hang with people, you can discover stuff that doesn't have the same pressure attached to it. Filmmakers actually watch each other's work, they're not just working. So we really like that, and it's the idea of the creative mix between the music people, the interactive people, everybody kind of hanging out together in this wonderful Austin way really works well.
We've heard it in Hollywood referred to as the Hollywood spring break. What do you think about that?
I don't know. Sounds fun. I mean, it's not that Hollywood, I don't think of South by as that Hollywood, but we certainly are having some pretty strong star power this year. The opening night film is hilarious. I highly recommend it. I haven't met a single person yet who didn't think it was funny of the few people that have seen it. It's called I Love You Man. and it's by John Hamburg, is the writer-director who made Along Came Polly. It stars Paul Rudd and Jason Segel and Rashida Jones. Jon Favreau has this great small part in it, and it's about a guy who's like really into his girlfriend, and he's not really good at boy pals, and he needs a best man because he's getting married. So he's got to kind of like figure out how to make a boy pal to be his best man. It really works. We're also premiering Observe and Report, which is a new Seth Rogen film. I ran out of the office and threw my notebook in the wrong bag, so sort of my list of notes of what we're showing is not in front of me. It's interesting in terms of who's actually coming. There's a a lot of Hollywood types. So, yeah.
Isn't Moon one of the films with Sam Rockwell?
Yeah.
And Kevin Spacey? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, it was a wonderful film that was at Sundance. It's directed by Duncan Jones, who turns out, I found out after I saw it, I didn't know beforehand, is David Bowie's son. And it's a film that's basically Sam Rockwell is in it alone. It's a sci-fi film, really kind of wonderful, old school sci-fi where he's up on this space station and there's a computer that's his only company, and he's been in isolation for 3 years, and his parts are breaking down, and he's waiting for his reinforcements to come in, and the question is, do they come? And there's a questions of what's economical for life in space, and clones come into play, and it's cool. So I'm not sure, Rockwell has not been confirmed yet, but we're hoping, he's tried to come in, we're really hoping he's going to come. So picking the Sundance films was hard because we show a limited number, but we tried to show the films that either were the ones that everybody were talking about, our favorite new discoveries, like Sin Hombre is this fantastic new director, or things that we thought were overlooked a little bit. And it was hard because this year everybody who played at Sundance also wanted to come to South by. And I had to say no to so many filmmakers and films that I admired. But I feel really, really good about the ones that we're showing from there are really all worth seeing. I recommend them highly. People have different appetites for whether they want something that's already been, they can read about that, people have already written about, or things that are totally new. And we have a ton of really new discovery films. We have a ton of Texas films. They're films made under the incentives bar. They're for the most part super low budget or documentaries, but it's an extremely strong showing this year. I think there might be 7 documentaries, and there's we have 2 features in the narrative competition for the first time in years. We felt that they were strong enough to put in, and we think they're great. So that's pretty exciting too. And that's when you asked about, it's funny, that's something that I think when you asked about a difference with me, since I'm an outsider and I just moved here, I almost feel like I can get stronger behind promoting the Texas films than if I was a kid who grew up here who was a Texan who was trying to help the festival have a more of a national platform. You might go in another direction, but I already have that, so I can I feel really good about the Texas films I can promote. Yeah.
That's good. You guys, 2 questions. One, why did some of the films that made it to Sundance not make it here due to the selection process? Question 2, what are the new models? Can you talk about the new models?
If you want to know what the new models are, you have to come to the conference and hear other people talk about it. I don't know. There's a lot of people trying. There's not a lot of money being made, and it's a really big topic, and I'm not an expert on it. I certainly pay attention. I read IndieWire every day, IndieWire.com. If you're interested in the independent film business, is definitely the indie trade. I read Filmmaker magazine. I subscribe to a lot of blogs, but it's, Matt Dentler, who was my predecessor, has a really active blog, and he's somebody who's worth kind of paying attention to. He's a cheerleader, so you can't always take what he says as concrete, but he's certainly, he was the first person I heard about Hulu from. It was like, oh, okay, should I pay attention? What is Hulu? What is Jom? And I never even heard the terms before I was reading his blog. So the first Sundance, we had a limit, and you just try to find the ones that speak to you the strongest. And then sometimes there, you don't want everything from one distributor. You have different distributor relationships that you're spreading around a little bit. So you want to have different people at the party. One from this company, one from this company, and it's just a balance. There's not an easy answer to that. Yeah, straight ahead. I can't hear you at all. You're the scriptwriter guy, right? Oh, which ones? Go ahead. I heard you and then I interrupted you because then I couldn't hear you. You asked about screenwriters, right? Script writing stuff. Yeah. I remember that.
Programs and panels, a script writing contest, acknowledge, in my opinion, what the most important, not one of the most important elements of the filmmaking process, which is the screenwriting.
Right.
I have spoken to people at AFF.
Mm-hmm.
They welcome the competition if you were to start a screenwriting program. I think there's, I was a strike captain for a writer for the strike.
Uh-huh.
And there's 300 Writers Guild members in the state of Texas. Most of them live right here in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
This is a writer's town. And despite what they do at AFF, I think that's something you should be doing.
Well, I'll think about that, and I'll sort of pass along that out to my friends at AFF that you said that. I think you can't be all things to all people, and I don't know. They set out to cover that area very strongly, and they have a writers' retreat. And I certainly wasn't here when they both started, but to me, as an outsider, it seemed healthy that South by Southwest and Austin Film Festival had different areas that they covered. South by is more of a director's festival. Always seemed to me it's always like a new, exciting discovery, and kind of and the fact that Austin has really great screenwriters that they bring in. I think that's great. So. I don't know where we would put it, how long it would be. We do an awful lot. The schedule's pretty crowded. So, I hear you, but it's something that at the Austin Film Society we talk about quite a lot too, because there are screenwriters on staff there that actually work there for their day jobs. And they're always kind of thinking about they wish there were more table readings and they'd like more feedback. And there's a lot of interest there. So I would actually, since the Austin Film Society is so good about reaching all year long out to the community and all the different facets of the filmmaking community, I would think that would be the best, the most receptive organization. But we have a very good script to screen panel this year. There's one, but it's very good. Catherine Hardwick and Tim McHale is on it, and Sarah Green, who works with Terrence Malick. And also Pat Afterheide, who's an advocate. She works a lot with copyright issues. And it was a little unusual for us to put her on the script to screen panel, because usually she's on a legal rights panel, but we're sort of like, what do you need to know right up front? Like, how does this affect you at inception? So I think it'll be a great panel. In the back? I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all. You're going to have to come closer to ask.
Shout it out, Jordan.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody can't get their film into our festival, but everybody can certainly apply. It's a really competitive process. There is submissions open in, I don't know if it was in August or by September 1st in the year. We accept films. There's an early deadline in November. The late deadline was in December this year. You submit a screener on a DVD. There's an online submission form, and that's the process. Physically, we had 3,500 submissions this year. We've ended up programming about 127, 130 features. I haven't counted, and a similar number of shorts. So it's highly competitive. And what the selection process is, there's no easy way to answer that, because we're looking for a range of films at budget levels. We're looking for work that moves us, that we think is compelling or exciting. We have very different ages of people in terms of the work that we're showing. It's not, some is very young, it's too old. So there's various There is a screening committee process where there are people who are screening films. Every film is seen by a couple of different people, and it works its way up. I haven't seen 3,500 of the submissions. It's impossible. I only have about a 6-week time to actually turn it around. So, but we all really are looking for stuff that we can just kind of get excited about. Everybody's looking for stuff to kind of promote. They're not looking for stuff not to. They're looking for the stuff that they can be like, oh, I love this. Let's see this, you know. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
There's been a lot about how many independent or boutique picture houses closed this year. New Yorker just announced that they're closing yesterday.
Yeah, I'm quoted in some of those articles. I have an old history, very like emotional. I mean, they were huge inspirations to me. It was, you know, there's a whole generation of us who do what we do because of them, and I'm one of those people. But
I assume that you had a close relationship with New Yorker in particular.
Yeah.
And I've heard a little bit from both sides. Another guy I know who was a programmer in New York in the 70s and 80s who had some negative things to say about what had happened in New York in the 80s and 90s, and how far the filter and how far an boutique filter distributed. Can you talk a little bit about their closing and what you think that means?
I can only say that I had a really, you know, I was inspired by them, and they were personally people that I cared a lot about. When I was at the Film Forum that I mentioned earlier, it was a twin cinema, and one side was a nonprofit exhibition site that premiered films every 2 weeks, and the other side we rented out to New Yorker Films, and they programmed it, and we showed their catalog, and so I worked with them, or for, you know, some combination of four with them. I can't speak to. You know, they always picked up challenging films. They never spent money. The whole independent film business changed so dramatically from their period in the 60s and 70s, and then we got involved when all of a sudden there was some real money changing hands for people that were making films for, you know, do-it-yourself kind of films. Like you know, She's Gotta Have It, cash down was like under $30,000. I mean, ultimately it was $100 and some odd, $125,000, but that's still different than millions, you know. So, and there was a time we were involved as Miramax was sort of on its rise, and all of a sudden they were really throwing a lot of money, and then Pulp Fiction came in and completely changed the ante for what was possible to make. So New Yorker was always really challenging, amazing films. I think they always ran their business super conservatively. Some people might use the word cheap. I'm not going to speak to that. I wasn't a programmer with it. You know, I didn't have to rent films from them, and I wasn't a producer of theirs, so I didn't see the royalty statements. I completely lost track of what they were doing in the last couple of decades. I really don't know. So, you know, I've been reading about it and kind of interested. I don't know. You know, I think what my husband's been saying about it is that the lesson learned is they sold the catalog to a company that folded quickly, and they, you know. And so the question is, really be careful about your rights. And as you talk about new models, you have to really be careful, particularly right now. Oh, I'm going to sell my rights to this new company that just somebody made up. You know, it's sort of like, once you sell your stuff, you sell it. And then what happens? So the question is why New Yorker Films also runs the Lincoln Plaza Cinemas, which is a hugely successful art theater on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. There's a question of why didn't they buy their own catalog back? Why didn't they save their loan? Is somebody else going to come in and buy it? I don't know the answer to any of those questions. But you know, it seems like an end of an era. But I mean, on the way down here, I was listening to KUT talking about newspapers closing, which is just in my house every day. We sort of cry about the magazines and newspapers getting thinner and thinner and thinner. You know, it's sort of like there's everything that I committed myself to, kind of, you know, New York intelligentsia, books and records and movies. It's all really changing. So it's interesting. I have no crystal ball.
So when you feel sad, when you have those moments, and you try and think, well, surely it's changing for the better.
No, it's not necessarily changing for the better.
Okay.
It's changing. It's changing. I didn't put a judgment on it. And I'm not saying it's not changing for the better. I'm not sure.
Oh, I was going to ask you if you try and convince yourself that it is.
No, I just know, because my husband gets really depressed about it. he's really, really upset because everything that mattered to him, and he feels like the quality of life is inferior. He feels like the discourse is inferior. He really is upset about it all. But it's like, what's the point in that? You know, it's kind of like my own personal life is pretty great right now, and I try to kind of find the joy in that, and kind of, you know, human relationships are always interesting, and for the filmmakers that are emerging today, it's different, and I'm curious to see. I'm sort of driven more by curiosity than judgment. I think that would be the answer. Yeah.
So in the times there are changing, how can filmmakers that get into your festival hope to have their lives and careers changed by the sort of exposure that you're providing?
When when I first took this job, I was pretty daunted, and then what kind of changed things around for me is I started traveling a little bit and talked to filmmakers who'd had films previously here, and they all loved the festival so much. They felt that it was just this completely supportive and exciting and creative launch pad, and that sort of answered the question for me. They relished every second of it. So, you know, I would kind of advise, I think, and I've been, the little bio thing said, I've been, you know, involved with sort of championing talent my whole career. And so what we have to offer is an event that people are coming to kind of be turned on and excited. And the filmmakers that are here get to, they're a selected number. And people, even if people don't actually see them, experience it at South by, they pay attention to our list. They pay attention, you know, it's like other people are sitting right now in different, all over the world actually, and looking at what is South by decided to premiere. I can't get there, but I'm going to follow up on these films. I'm going to look for these films. I'm going to pay attention when they come to my town. I'm going to, you know, write to them and try to see it. So I think as a filmmaker, you want to take advantage of it in terms of seeing what kind of an audience you have, building an audience, seeing how it works, engaging with other filmmakers, and it's not a pithy answer, but is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Is that, yeah?
What's the general vibe of the people in South by Southwest? Pretty optimistic, not that optimistic, very optimistic?
They're a really hard-working bunch of people. Really.
Consider the economy.
Well, we're doing okay. I mean, we're cautious, and we run a lean organization, and we keep costs down, and that's how it's stayed alive all the years that it has. But we are not experiencing any effects of the economic crisis that we can tell.
We'll rub some of that off.
Yeah, I think it's because we're holding very steady with last year, and in some places we're growing, and I think it's because it's a tremendous value, and people just think it may be expensive, but it's really, I'm going to get so much more from it than for what it costs. That people are. Although I did get a call today from somebody who had to cancel their plane because their oven blew up, and they had to take the money they had for the trip, and they had to deal with their oven, which is too bad. But
Peter Fonda gave me his personal email. That was
that'd be scary.
my story. He did respond.
I used to come down here from, I mean, that's how we fell in love with the city. We got involved with Rick, who we just respect so much, and we love his work. And actually, my husband always had a Texas thing going on. The first trip we ever took was in '82. We came through here and drove to Telluride. His college roommate had been from outside of San Antonio. But I came to know it through coming down to South by, and it was always, and I had little kids, and it was hard to travel, but I would make an effort because it was 4 days where I just felt the quality of the commuting I would have with the other people here was like super exciting and super great and rewarding, and it really lasted. You know, I just cherished that. And when I moved here, it became a different experience because then I saw everybody who, like I was the host to everybody who would come from everywhere else, and it would be like so exciting because people come here, they love it. Everybody loves it. I met one person who was like, it was like, so she was so urban, she didn't care for it. She was lives in Paris, but but for the most part, you know, it was so much fun to kind of once again have everybody here at this moment in time. So now I don't know what it'll be like working it. This is a first for me. Yeah.
I have $99 to spend on South by Southwest. How can I spend it?
Well, what do you care most about? I mean, a film pass is $70. You can go to unlimited movies over the 9 days. A wrist badge is, I think, $129, so that's too expensive for you. But that's if you're into music. You can buy individual tickets for $10. I wouldn't wait online at the Ritz because it sells out. If you're just buying individual tickets, I'd go to the Paramount. And that's something to realize at Paramount, even if the lines look really scary, that place is big, it holds a lot of people. So getting into the Paramount, you know, is opening night might be a little challenging, but it's worth trying. And we're running a ton of midnight shows this year. Not that who here would ever go to a midnight show? Okay, not only are we doing our normal midnight program at the Ritz, we've got these really nice 7 films, one of which is Joe Dante doing Trailers from Hell and Coming in Person, which should really be fun. Joe Dante, if you don't know who he is, he directed Gremlins. And he worked with Corman back in the day, and he's really an entertaining storyteller, and he has a website called trailersfromhell.com, and so he and other film lovers and famous directors and stuff, they tell really interesting stories about this collection of trailers, so that's going to be cool. But then we're also showing 6 films from the Fantastic Fest, which takes place in September. They're doing 6 premieres during our festival at the Alamo South Lamar. So at that point, we're definitely, you know, there'll be like 4, the first 5 days, there'll be 4 midnight shows every night. Yeah? Well, that filmmakers have to be, the question was, what are the new trends that I've seen, even if I don't have real answers about that, what's a curiosity? The trends that I've noticed seem to be that filmmakers really have to work extremely hard, very personally, to be involved with connecting their work with their audience. The ones who are working, that's what they've done, and it's very different. Making a film is a different time frame and energy than actually everything that goes after. But the people that are, if you want to reach an audience, it takes a lot of labor and follow through, and people are working very hard for no money or with limited money. They're having to be creative about it, but that's the main thing of how much is on the filmmaker themselves to market it. And I was at some kind of thing in LA where there was a series of industry experts all talking, and every single one of them talked about before you make your film, you need to be thinking about who is it for. And it doesn't mean that it's for a big audience. You still have to know who it's for and how are you going to reach those people. And there are so many different ways to go about that now, but that's key. All right. Well, should we call it a day? I hope you all, so far the festival this first year has been going better than I expected, and I think we have a terrific lineup. I think the films are great across the spectrum, so I hope you come, and I hope it works well. That's all done. Although they need music production volunteers, I hear, and I don't even know, there's probably a volunteer at SXSW